Sure. I'm James Morrow, the AFK Organsky Collegiate Professor of World Politics, and I teach Political Science 160, Introduction to World Politics. You may not be familiar with this, but this course covers what will be taught in other places as international relations. I actually like the term world politics better because we talk not only about the politics that occurs between different countries, but also how the politics inside those countries affect what they do internationally. Sure. So I've lived in many places, but I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I went to college in Southern California. I got my PhD in upstate New York. My first job was up the road at that other place, about an hour northwest of here, but I was only there for 3 years before I came here. I went out to California for 20 years, and then I came back here in 2000 and have been here ever since. So I was always interested in politics and history growing up as a kid. But my undergraduate degree is actually in math. But what was different was in my junior year, in the winter quarter, because it was in California, so it was a quarter system, not semesters, I took 2 political science classes in the same quarter, and it took all of 10 weeks to convince me to change fields because some of those classes used a lot of math. And so I could study something I'd always been really interested in, politics, using a whole lot of tools I enjoyed using, which were mathematical ones. I guess in part because, as you guessed from the previous comments, a lot of my research uses math, either statistics or game theory in it, and it can be quite technical and demanding. And one of the things I like best about teaching at the introductory level is it forces me to figure out how to communicate the ideas and arguments in that research in a way that can be understandable to a bright, capable first and second year student. Game theory, there's only a little bit of it in my class. There are other for the do it, but game theory is a theory of strategic interaction. That is, how do you decide when not only your choices affect what happens, but what other people's choices matter too? And that matters a lot in politics, because if you think about, like, for example, 2 different countries, like if you were going to say, well, maybe Russia and Ukraine should sit down and negotiate an end to the war. They can't just say, this is what we want. They have to think, well, what can I get the other side to accept as well? And how might I be able to convince them to do what I want? And that's why it's useful. Although we do very little of it directly at the introductory level, but there's a fair amount of it sort of, as you might say, under the hood. Okay. In terms of substance in 160, we teach sort of 3 broad different areas, different sorts of issues that matter in world politics. A large part of the course is about conflict and security. Why do wars happen? How do they play out? What are the political consequences of them? And how do countries prepare themselves for that? The second third of the course is what we call international political economy, which is about the politics of international economic issues. And the last I call transnational challenges, which covers sort of everything that doesn't fit in the first 2, like the environment and human rights and issues like that. I actually have a lot of favorite things in this class, and some of them are unexpected. Because much of my research is in the area of conflict and security, there are a number of classes there I particularly like. I do a very nice one on the domestic politics of war. That is, what are the consequences in domestic politics of a country being involved in war? In the area of international political economy, I think the issue of trade is fabulous. I love teaching it. And in the last one, if I think about, maybe it's the very last class of new material I do at the end of the semester, it brings everything together and tries to explain in a mere 50 minutes why the world is the way it is. That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. Sometimes it's interesting. I will sometimes get comments on the evaluation at the end. This course isn't what I thought it was going to be. And it's like, but they never tell me what it is they thought it was. So I don't know. So my main objective in this class is to not teach you although we do talk a lot about a lot of specific events, some current, some historical, is to try and teach you how to think for yourself about these events. And so the class is organized around 6 principles of world politics, that if you understand those 6 ideas and can apply them, you'll be able to do the analysis for yourself. So you won't be just learning about how to think about the world in the 2020s, but also the 2030s, 2040s, and 2050s. Well, I'll mention one we don't do anymore, which is, before the pandemic, it was much more of a conventional lecture class. And in a class where I was talking about wars and sort of what determines who wins in a war, one of those factors I wanted to point out was luck. And so I used to tell a story about the Battle of Midway. But to give it the appropriate visual effect, I would stand up on the table and do airplane imitations. And somehow that's one thing every student seemed to remember. They may not remember what the point of the story, but they remember, I can't believe it, he got up on the table and started making airplane noises. Okay, I think I sort of mentioned this already, is what I hope you do is learn how to think for yourself about events. And to help you develop that, the course requires 2 1,000-word papers, where in each of those you'll learn about a current event and analyze it using ideas from the course. And then the exams, a midterm and a final, typically give people newspaper stories which we edit down and ask them to analyze it using the principles.